have a good softball team in East Side. Why don't you make one team in town side? And let's play each other. He thought it was a real good idea, and let's start playing each other every weekend.
The first time Kei Kamanishi freely crossed the Forbidden Bridge, he was on his way to play baseball. Lillooet was desegregated.
First time we went to across the bridge, I thought, well, this is a real freedom, you know. And you could see all the town sites, and could go to theaters and stores by, you know, shopping yourselves. And so, you know, it's a real good feeling after that.
All the different camps wanted to play each other. You know, each one proud of their teams. They're better than the other teams, and we had to find out. So that culminated in the Slocan Valley Championship.
We weren't supposed to leave that camp without permission from the Royal Mounted Police. So the Mounties would make arrangements to take them to another camp, you know, so that's how much it meant to them as well as to the Japanese. So it's amazing what happened.
But Lemon Creek was under the thumb of Commissioner Jimmy Burns. The boys there didn't even have a proper field to practice in. Kiyoshi Suga wanted his big brother, star pitcher Kaz Suga, to appeal to the boss.
He was the only one with the nerve to confront Mr. Burns to see if they could convert his farm for them to practice ball in. Well, Burns let them build the diamond, and it strikes me that he wanted something in return.
What Jimmy Burns wanted was the championship. There were rumors of a big wager. Kaz promised Burns the Lemon Creek All-Stars would bring home the trophy. And the players got their diamond. The Slocan Valley Championship was played on July 1st, 1943, Dominion Day.
I still remember Lemon Creek when we had that July the 1st weekend in Slocan, when all the 4 teams from the different camps there came out to play, and we were all out there.
That'd be a couple thousand people. Everybody was leaning on the rails all the way around. And all the whites in town were there, all the Japanese.
I still remember Kasuga up there pitching, and he'd frown, and he'd, you know, have that smirk on his face sometimes, and then he would throw the ball and strike people out, you know, so that was just absolutely wonderful to watch.
It came down to Lemon Creek versus Slocan. At the bottom of the 9th, the score was tied. With 2 men on base, Kaz came to bat. He was walked. Up next was Yuki Uno. He laid down a perfect bunt and finished it off with a classic Asahi squeeze play.
Of course, when Lemon Creek won, we thought we were gods. Yeah, we thought we had the best team in the whole world. And we were so proud of them.
Jimmy Burns got his trophy. But the people in the camps got something more. In that moment, something was relived, recaptured, remembered. On August 15th, 1945, Japan surrendered to the Allies. Suddenly, everyone was heading for home. Almost everyone. Unlike Japanese Americans, most Japanese Canadians would never go home again.
We couldn't. The restrictions weren't lifted until 2-3 years after the war. By then, you see, while we were in Ghost Town, we were given a choice. Go east of Canada or go repatriate yourself to Japan. But what's that to us? We're Canadians, born in Canada. What were we going to do in foreign countries?
You knew it would be like the beginning of the end. So, what was very traumatic was when the first boatload was leaving for Japan, and that was in May of 1946, and one of my best friends was on that first boatload. I still remember crying so much that I just ran out of tears. So nowadays I hardly ever cry because it's gone. There are no more tears.
That was the end of the Vancouver Japanese as a community. It never was the same again. Not as it was on Powell Street, not even as it was in the camps.
It was secure. Nobody could harm you there. No one was going to spit on you and call you a dirty Jap. It was a bit of a cocoon, you know, because everybody around looked like you, and you had your own language. What was going to happen when you went east?
Everybody had to start all over again. Once the war settled down and the camps were closed, and people ended up in their final destinations.
Like everyone else, the Asahi players were scattered across the country. Outfielder Kei Kamanishi packed tomatoes in Kamloops. Leading batter Junji Ito worked as a mechanic in Montreal. Shortstop Roy Yamamura parked cars in Hamilton.
We used to hear about how so-and-so was working here and so-and-so was working there, and they were all in labor-intensive jobs. There was no longer a Japanese community that thought they were extra special, so that they would go out of their way to hire them. So they went downhill, I think, after.
Pitcher Miki Maekawa ended up in Toronto with his wife and 2 little girls. He worked in a car wash.
I don't think anybody went back to their, former residence or their business. It's all gone. We had a house, and that was sold, and the business was sold too. It's hard for you to believe it.
Yuki Uno, the man who'd placed the winning bunt for Lemon Creek, went to Montreal.
Not very many went back, I don't think, because they know what it's like in Vancouver. Jap, once you're a Jap, you know.
Yuki worked for years making boxes in a cardboard factory. Now approaching 90, he suspects the Asahis are long forgotten.
I don't know, it's hard to say. Because even now, younger kids don't know who I am or where I played or anything like that. No? They're not interested.
Bonjour, Monsieur Uno. Ça va bien? Hey. Acheté un journal?
But then, heck, to be like me, it's nothing.
Et voilà votre chance. 25 sous.
Yeah, any Joe could be like me. I mean, yeah. So, Here I am, Joe.
When I think of the past, it's just not the material losses. It's the loss of the Asahi baseball team and what it meant to people like my father. I remember saving my money from my hard-earned summer money and giving him for Father's Day a season's ticket to the Hamilton baseball team. And I kept on thinking that maybe I'm bringing a little bit of joy back into his life. And so I did that. And I guess I was forever trying to get that back for him. It was never retrieved, although I tried.
Baseball was the spirit of the Japanese community. A spirit, it turns out, that won't die easily. In 2001, the city of Uji challenged its Canadian sister city, Kamloops, to a baseball game in Japan. The Kamloops team needed a ringer, so they recruited the man once nicknamed the vacuum cleaner, Kei Kamanishi, the outfielder whose love of baseball had desegregated Littlewood more than 60 years ago.
What's a vacuum cleaner? Oh, you catch all the balls and you get all the ground balls and you never miss. So they call me, nickname was a vacuum cleaner for a while. But still all the good.